Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. I talk a lot about how historical climate data is altered or hidden, but another tactic used by climate alarmists is to present accurate historical data and then use manipulative rhetoric to distort its meaning. George Orwell said, "If thought corrupts language, then language can also corrupt thought." Here's an article from the Washington Post discussing the first Thanksgiving dinner which occurred 500 years ago this November. The article was titled, "What the First Thanksgiving Can Teach Us About Adjusting to Climate Shock." The article discusses how pilgrims and other European colonists suffered terribly in the New World from drought. The article reads, "Many European expeditions happened to arrive during exceptionally bad years of frozen winters and parched summers. Between 1540 and 1541, followers of De Soto reported snowstorms in Arkansas and Alabama, and followers of Coronado rode horses over the frozen Rio Grande. The first Spanish explorers in California found the mountains of Monterey Bay covered in snow, and the first English colonies at Roanoke and Jamestown starved during the region's worst drought in centuries." And then they explained that all of this cold and drought was part of the Little Ice Age. One of the things we can infer from this article is that drought is often associated with cold. The article makes it clear that very severe droughts have occurred at low levels of carbon dioxide. Another thing we can infer from this article is that large changes in climate were occurring 500 years ago and they had nothing to do with human intervention. But the headline of the article is Climate Fear Porn. The Washington Post wants people to believe that climate change is caused by humans and drought is caused by global warming. They want people to believe that drought and extreme weather is caused by the use of fossil fuels, even though the article makes it very clear that that's not the case. The historical record provides no reason to believe that lower CO2 levels will make the climate better. Here's another article from the New York Times. Study finds pattern of severe droughts in Africa. For at least 3,000 years, a drumbeat of potent droughts, far longer and more severe than any experienced recently, have seared a belt of sub-Saharan Africa that is now home to tens of millions of the world's poorest people. The last such drought, persisting more than 3 centuries, ended around 1750. So once again we see evidence that there were terrible droughts during the Little Ice Age when carbon dioxide levels were quite low. These droughts were not caused by humans, they were not caused by the burning of fossil fuels, and they were associated with cold weather rather than hot weather. But then the New York Times article went on. They said, "The climate fluctuations of the Little Ice Age were only a fraction of the climate change projected under most global warming scenarios." The article just documented that the droughts were not caused by the burning of fossil fuels, they were not caused by humans, and they were associated with cold weather. But now they're trying to claim that global warming caused by the burning of fossil fuels will produce even more severe droughts. They provide no evidence for this, and their prediction contradicts everything they previously wrote in the article. The New York Times is using language to try to corrupt the thought of their readers. Here's another article from the New York Times from 1974. The article talked about how global cooling was causing colder, more erratic weather. They said that the global cooling was causing a severe drought in Africa and might require the evacuation of 6 million people. The science is very clear. Droughts are caused frequently by cold weather. Lower levels of carbon dioxide do not make for a better climate, and climate change has been occurring for a very long time and had nothing to do with the activities of humans. The worst droughts have occurred when carbon dioxide levels were much lower, and there's no reason to believe that cutting back the use of fossil fuels will prevent droughts in the future. The historical record provides no reason to believe that carbon dioxide and extreme weather have any correlation with each other. But climate alarmists have been pushing the propaganda that climate change is caused by carbon dioxide, which means that it's caused by the use of fossil fuels. The historical record in no way backs up this idea, yet the propaganda is pervasive. If we look at the NASA global warming website, the first thing they say is, "Climate change, how do we know?" And they have this graph of carbon dioxide levels over the last 800,000 years. The graph shows that there's been a sharp increase in carbon dioxide levels over the past century. But this graph tells us nothing about climate or climate change. It's just a graph of CO2 levels in the atmosphere. What climate propagandists at NASA and other places have done is they've gotten the public to associate CO2 with climate. It's the same sort of conditioning which Pavlov did to his dogs. He trained the dogs to salivate when a bell rang. The bell and salivating had nothing to do with each other. And this graph has nothing to do with climate change. It's just the amount of a trace gas that's currently in the atmosphere. Many members of the public have had their beliefs about climate corrupted via the abuse of language. They believe that fossil fuels are the same as climate, even though the historical record shows that they have little or nothing to do with each other. Very bad weather and extreme droughts occurred at low levels of CO2. We know that some of the most extreme weather occurred at low CO2 levels and at low temperatures. We know that large changes in climate occurred in the past and had nothing to do with human activity. And we know that there's no reason to believe that low CO2 levels will make the climate better. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on this propaganda campaign for the past 13 years. You can visit him and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.